for you guys who don't know, we have with us today Rachel Segal and Kenneth Bean. Mr. Bean, most of you probably have encountered at this point in the camp, or many of you anyway. The two of them work for the Primavera Fund. You can find on our website more information about that organization. We have a link up there to that on the camp website if you guys are interested in finding out about that. But they go through this college preparation and application process every year with the students that they have in that organization. So we wanted to bring them in to talk to you guys about that. They have this fabulous document that we were just talking about that I sent out to everybody that you guys should be able to access in your email I got sent out today. And so, yeah, they're just going to take us through the basics, some highlights of this whole process that many of you will probably be doing in some short amount of time here. So without further ado, take it away, you guys.
Hello, everyone. Like Jocelyn said, most of you guys know me. Jacob, Christopher, Patricia. The rest of you, hello, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us. This document was that Jocelyn sent to you guys earlier was put together by a friend and colleague of ours and the Primavera Fund. She is actually the viola teacher at Kinhaven Music School in the summers. And she teaches at a couple of New Jersey colleges during the year, chamber music and viola. Her name is Andre Mitchell, and really this document is very thorough and it has the perspective of what you should be thinking about and what you should kind of be doing actively and for basically every year of high school to take you up through the college application and audition process. So I want to start by just briefly talking about kind of what where your headspace should be at freshman and sophomore years, your underclassmen years, and then really get into the nitty gritty in starting junior year, which is where the majority of your real hard work and prep for college is gonna fall. But just so we have an idea of what grades you guys are in, can you each tell us share with us your grade, what grade you're about to start or have started already? Courtney, can you start?
Oh, sorry. My name is Colin. I'm on my mom's computer.
Okay.
But I'm going into 8th grade.
Eighth grade, okay. And Jacob, what about you?
You're muted.
You're muted, Jacob.
I'm going into 12th grade.
Okay, great.
And Patricia?
I'm going to 10th grade.
10th grade. Kalia?
Oh, sorry. It's Kalia. I'm going into 7th grade.
7th grade. Cesar?
Hi, I'm Santiago's mom. He's going into 8th grade, but I teach high school. I thought it would be interesting to listen in.
Okay, that's great.
Great.
That's great. Sarah?
Not musically talented myself.
Okay, that's all right. Sarah, what grade are you going into?
I'm going into 9th grade.
9th grade, great. And Christopher Vega. What grade are you going into?
I'm going into my senior year.
Okay.
Good.
So
I've got some.
spread all over.
Yeah.
All over the place. That's good. That's great. Rachel, you want to share your screen?
Sure. So I basically, Kenny and I made a we made a kind of a truncated version of that larger document that you have. And I'm going to share that now so we can stay on the same page here. And wait a second here. I'm going to go to present. There we go. Can everyone see this? It says college prep for musicians. Yeah?
Yes.
Is it full screen?
It is full screen.
Okay, good. So, as Kenny said, we're going to start off with freshman and sophomore year. And I think it's so great that there's a couple of you that are not even in high school yet. So you are really ahead of the game. But hopefully those of you who are upperclassmen now have already thought about these things. If not, there's still some time. But the first 2 years of high school, you want to ask yourself these questions. And we could talk about any of these points, along the way. They are, why do you want to be a musician? What other career paths interest you? And is there any overlap? Are you ready to commit to music completely? Do you want to pursue performance or music education? And are there other aspects of music or production that interest you? For instance, composition or arranging, or recording and sound engineering? And I put this down here because this is the time to really do this. Learn all of your major and minor scales and arpeggios. Learn them from memory. Do them every single day, because you will be asked to play them during your auditions, and they are the building blocks of music, and we all need to know them. No matter what area of music you go into, you're going to need to know that.
That's true. Just to kind of back up a little bit, I have my mother-in-law, and who was a big mentor of mine. She was a brilliant cellist and conductor, and she would mentor all kinds of students over her, 50 plus year career. But the number one thing she would say to students who were considering going into music at all was, well, can you do anything else? Because it really is a big commitment if you are on the side of going to college, studying music in college, especially as a performance major. A lot of and we can get into this later, but a lot of universities require academic courses as well as music courses, and you kind of have to juggle the two. So I mean, I'm sure that you guys are all pretty busy now as young musicians, as well as being still in school, and you'll find that it's a big juggle, to get, to manage your schedule and when can I practice and blah blah blah, all these things. That does not get better with time. In fact, it gets worse, that problem. So kind of getting used to that and being able to manage yourselves is very important. And being very serious about it, because really, if you can do anything else, you might want to really consider doing that thing. So it's it is a really big commitment. It's number 3 on our list. Are you ready to commit to music completely? It seems like an innocuous question, but it really does take full commitment to achieve high level of playing. High level playing.
That is all very, very true. I'd like to also add that the reason why we added, are there other aspects of music that interest you, or is there any overlap with other career paths, is because, you can say, I'm going to go into music performance and do that as your major, and that's your path. You want to perform as a career, and that is great. But knowing some other areas can really help you make extra money as a musician. My definition of a professional musician is somebody who makes their living in music. Mm-hmm. And that can mean so many different things. I have a degree, I have 2 degrees in performance. My undergrad degree is from University of Michigan. My graduate degree is from Yale School of Music. And one of my favorite things to do now is arranging. And if I had learned more aspects of composition and arranging when I was at school, I could have been doing that for a lot longer. So that's just why I bring that up, not as an alternative necessarily, but as something in addition.
Same. I do quite a bit of arranging. Also, when I was in middle school, I started kind of teaching myself the piano. And I was able to make money all through high school, playing in churches and weddings and not trumpet, which is my major instrument, but the piano. It's certainly great to keep yourself open and expand your horizons musically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just makes
Anyone have questions about this before we go on to the next one? You can use the raise your hand feature or just raise your actual hand.
no
No?
question.
Okay. Next, gather information. What kind of school is right for you? And some of the things you might want to think of, do you thrive in a larger or a smaller school environment? If you go to a small private school right now, it may be a big shock for you to go to a huge university like, University of Michigan or Temple or something like that. On the other hand, you might want that after so many years in a smaller setting. Do you prefer a school in a city or a more rural setting? Oops. You should also learn how to use computers in college. Sorry. Will you have access to high quality professional performances? This is really, really important. And, even if you are in a really rural setting, do they have a faculty series that's really good? Do they have visiting artists, visiting orchestras? These are all things you might want to look into because you do want to continue seeing and hearing high quality professional performances throughout college. You need to have a model, right? Do you want to go far away or stay close by? And what are the potential financial factors of in-state versus out of state? And most importantly, probably, with whom do you want to study? A school might seem like a really awesome choice and, oh, I love that setting and I love that city, or it's so, prestigious. And then someone says, oh, that's great. Well, who are you going to go study with? And you're like, I don't know. That should not be your answer.
Correct.
You should be going to a school to study with somebody who can really, really help you get better, who you have a connection with, who you like to work with. You're going to spend a lot of money on college, so you want to get the most out of it, right? And I have two resources here for you. Every year there's by Project 440, they do a college fair, which I assume is going to be virtual this year. So you want to go to their website and find out more information on that. That's a really great event, and it's free and it's open to everybody. And also this interview with a man named Sigus Vani, who worked for decades as a school counselor, and he calls himself the college fairy. Some of these ideas I got from actually a seminar I went to with him. And he is so wonderful. He also does one-on-one sessions for very, very little money. I think it's like $20 or something like that. So that's a really great resource.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, do you have any comments on any of that?
On that, no.
Okay.
No.
Anyone have any questions? No? Okay.
Before we go to the next thing, I just want to bring up a couple of more things that again should be on your mind, freshman, sophomore year, and even before now. Those of you who are in middle school, again, you're benefiting quite greatly from being given this information and kind of get your mind and your brain and your thinking where it needs to be. A few years ahead of time. So I just want to bring these up quickly. First, if you don't see yourself as a music major, but you would like to keep doing music as part of your education or something like that, you maybe could consider music as a minor, which is very common. Or even just making sure you're involved in the school's ensembles. You can often do that in a lot of schools for credit and not as part of a major, but just kind of as college credit and something useful to do with all the time you'll have. How much? Another thing is how much experience you have playing at this point, especially if you're considering going into music. You want to make sure you're playing in youth orchestras, attending the summer camps, which you are currently doing now, and doing competitions and things like that, all state and regional competitions. There's chamber music offerings in Philadelphia at the Temple Prep, as well as Settlement Music School. Those sorts of things, because honestly, when you do start to audition, the other students who are also auditioning at the same time that are serious about music will have done these things. So you want to make sure that you get as much experience as possible. Think about what your level of playing is currently. Are you on track to be a music major or minor, or whatever wherever your thinking is? And if you're not, now is the time to start building practice habits. At least a couple hours of practice a day, I would say, especially, even as a middle school student, 1 to 2 hours, regular, concentrated, methodical practice is what you're going to need to kind of, build that, that your practice tolerance, because it's going to, those numbers of hours are going to have to go up as you get through high school and closer to college. You're going to want that. And also going to concerts and recitals. We all live close to the very great Philadelphia Orchestra. There's also the Curtis School right in downtown Philadelphia. There's also Symphony and C, which is a wonderful, wonderful orchestra right there in South Jersey. Yeah. So there's many, many options to go hear live music, and again, just to kind of expose yourself to as much music as possible at your younger years. Also, workshops. I've already mentioned summer camps, but camps and workshops are something that'll expose you, as you know, those of you who have been to Symphony and C summer camp in the past, to peers that are of the same mindset. And one thing that I noticed when I was your age and as I went through high school and college is that a lot of the camps that I've went to and even though the schools I've gone to, I see a lot of these people in the professional world. I work with a lot of them. So these are some of the people I met back in high school or back in summer camp. So you start to build those contacts and get to build relationships that you'll likely be maintaining for years to come. Any questions on anything like that I've said?
I also want to just add that the Primavera Fund, we run a monthly masterclass series. And we try to get people who are teaching at schools where our Primavera students might want to go audition. And that is a really good resource. Everybody is welcome to watch those. We're going to have probably all of them online this year. And then that way you can see a potential teacher working with students, so if we have someone who plays your instrument or an instrument in your instrument family, I would strongly recommend you watch those. To get an idea of some of these people who are out there.
Yeah, a lot of those videos are not instrument specific. Like there's a couple of practice ones that will apply to any musician. The first one we did was about tech for classical musicians. So any musician can benefit from most of those videos. So definitely check them out. Primavera Fund on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Do you want to carry on?
Yeah, sure. All right, junior year. This is where things start to get real. You should make your list of 6 to 8 schools. And when you read through, as I know you will all do, when you read through this larger packet that was sent out, you'll see how to sort of categorize them. You want to have some that are reach schools, your dream school. You want to have some that are pretty solid choice. You'd be very happy going there. And then you want to have a couple of safety schools. So it tells you about all of that in here. And, you just have to make those determinations with your private teacher right now and your parents. Those are great resources for deciding what those schools will be. but you really want to do 6 to 8.
Right, and there's also, a few different types of school that you can choose from. And there,
Yeah.
again, there's a sheet, a page in the packet that spells this out pretty thoroughly. Just to go over a couple, the universities are probably the biggest institutions of higher ed that are out there. Generally, there's multiple campus. They're big campuses. There's research versus teaching universities. They mostly are 4-year undergraduate programs and 2-year graduate programs, doctoral programs, and so forth. Some are public, some are private, and some, are in suburban areas. Some are right in the heart of the city. Some are in the, surrounded by farms. Like I went to Oberlin Conservatory, and it was surrounded by cornfields. There's also your smaller liberal arts, like Swarthmore, for those of you close to Philadelphia, or Oberlin even, is the conservatory is attached to a smaller liberal arts college. Again, these schools are medium to small size, much smaller than the general, the bigger university. Um, uh, some are specialty universities, some are liberal arts colleges, and again, like the universities, these colleges offer 4-year undergraduate degrees and most 2-year graduate degrees, masters and bachelors. I'm sorry, masters and PhDs and so forth. And there's still the variety of location, metropolitan, suburban, or rural campus areas.
They
Um,
also provide a variety of degrees.
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
And like I know Temple, for instance, has I think a 5-year program where you can get both a performance and music ed degree in 5 years. There's a lot of programs like that you'll come out with degrees, or you could go in any different direction.
Absolutely. So that's certainly all worth a look. The different degree offerings and possible dual degree programs that a lot of these schools have. A couple of the other types of schools that you're looking for: community colleges. Generally, those community college, you'll get 2-year associate degrees, so it's like a step below the 4-year undergraduate degree. Um, you're usually you can attend these schools to kind of transfer credits to bigger schools, and again, since they're small and they're like locally based schools, these community colleges, they are generally much cheaper, much cheaper option than a big university or a conservatory trade school. Which brings us to the last type of school that you'll be looking at, is the trade or vocational school, which is a conservatory fits in that, under that banner of trade school. Well, usually when you think of trade schools or vocational school, you think of being an electrician or a plumber or something like that. But music is a trade, like being in a conservatory. I mean, it's a very high level, fancy smanchy trade school, but it's a trade school nonetheless. And we're talking about schools like Peabody and Manhattan School and Oberlin, and any major conservatory, any conservatory at all. Generally, they are very small, very exclusive, and their acceptance percentage. You can usually get 4-year undergraduate degrees there. Some offer 2-year master's degrees or DMAs, Doctoral of Musical Arts. Um, Generally, in conservatories, they're going to be they're going to be as expensive or more expensive than a lot of the universities out there. So
And they
unlike
probably don't offer as much financial aid.
Correct. That is correct. A lot of schools do offer merit-based scholarships, depending on the quality of your playing, which is brings me back to the because I remember when I was a student your age, my teacher would always be harping on me about practicing, and not it didn't really dawn on me until I was doing college auditions and like kind of like competing for scholarship monies with like a national like group of students going to college at the same time, that it really became real. It's like, oh my god, maybe I should go learn all my scales, and like maybe I should go try and sound better. It really does make going to college much more affordable and much more attainable if you are able to do these things that your teacher is telling you. It's a real thing. So no one's making that up to make your lives
Right.
miserable.
Also, if you feel like you are maybe a little behind, okay, your peers at your age, which is fine. A lot of people didn't start playing violin when they were 4. They started when they were 10 or 12, and they need a little extra time or something like that. Community college can be a really great option for that for a couple of years. You usually don't have to go totally full time, but you can get some of your requirements done, and then you have college credits, which actually colleges love people who already have college credits. And you get a couple more years to really focus on improving your playing and practicing and getting ready to go to a school for 4 years that you think you're really going to get a lot out of.
Mhm.
So I would urge people to keep an open mind about that option. Okay, so continuing on this screen here. So the second thing is to make a spreadsheet of audition and pre-screening requirements, potential teachers, and fees. Now, how many people have made a spreadsheet before? Do you know what that is? Sort of? Anyone else? Okay, it's basically a very sophisticated graph. So you can use, the ones that we use at Primavera Fund is Google Sheets, but you can also use Excel if you have Microsoft products on your computer, or you can use, there's also an Apple one, I think, called Numbers. And you just put the name of the school along, the name of the school, however you want to do the columns, and then the teacher that you want, audition requirements, audition dates, and the fees really are important though. Some are very, very high. And I would also put in the fees category what it's going to cost you to travel there if you're traveling to go take the audition. These are all things that factor in, because you want to make a college audition budget as well.
Can I
All right.
also say, sorry to interrupt,
Right.
Please.
From a teaching, being a teacher, helping kids do this process and helping them prepare all the stuff they need for the audition, the more detailed that you can be when you're writing all this stuff down as far as the requirements, the better. I do not, as a teacher, want to come to your lesson and say, great, what are the requirements for this audition? And you say, I think I have to play some scales and like a piece. Like, that's not cutting it, right? So like, Kenny's laughing because he knows who might be the specific example for this scenario. But be specific, literally, and especially now with the technology. I remember when I did this back in the day, I just had a big notebook and I had each college that I was doing on a page and just wrote every detail I could find out in the notebook. But now it's as simple as copy and pasting from the website, right? So just like make your spreadsheet, put a notes field or something, and just like put it all in there. Many, many details is good.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I will say.
That's great advice for sure.
Yeah, that is very, very important to be as detailed as possible. Yeah.
Just another quick word about fees. A lot of schools will have application or audition fees even. It is not uncommon to, if that, like, because if you're auditioning for, 8, 10 schools, like a lot of schools, some kids are auditioning for a lot of schools, that becomes very costly very quickly. But some schools, if you take the initiative and write them and ask, they will waive a lot of those fees. So it's certainly I think it's worth asking, the university, their policy on that. I mean, there might be some financial thing you might have to meet, or they might just have to do it. I know that one of our Symphony and C's colleagues, Paul Bryan, who's a dean at Curtis, did mention, he said that, that's one thing that Curtis does, is because they have application and audition fees like most places. But if a student writes them and says, you know, can this fee be waived for me for whatever reason, they will do it. I think it's worth you know, checking into that if you're applying for a lot of schools and you're seeing that cost accumulate.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next, visit the schools either in person or virtually. I mean, we are in a weird time now. I don't know how many schools are doing in-person tours, but a lot of them have virtual tours.
Yes, I mean, even in times not
Right.
COVID,
Yeah.
there's many different types of tours that you can take. Um, there, you know, the, uh, the first and cheapest is the self-guided tour slash visit. If you just, you know, drive to a school, or if you live near a campus, like just go there yourself and like kind of check out what's there. You can you know, and self-guided's free usually. There's guided tours. Generally, you have to schedule those again. With COVID, those are probably not going on right now. Open houses, a lot of schools allow you to come and sit in classes. You can talk with professors, or you just kind of see how things actually operate there. Um, and again, with COVID, that those are probably not happening right now. And then there's virtual tours, which are everyone has that because we all have the internet. And you know, you can most schools have the virtual tour option, especially nowadays.
That is correct. Yes. Talk to current students if possible. If you know alumni from your youth orchestra or wherever that, or your teacher's studio, or just other friends from school who went to a certain college, call them, email them, text them, ask them how it's going. Do they, you know, because then you'll get a real opinion, not reading the school's literature, but you know, you want to talk to people who actually go there, and get a feel for it that way. And plan your audition repertoire and practice it with an accompanist if possible. I can't tell you how many auditions Kenny and I and Jocelyn, I'm sure, also have heard where it's like, whoa, this person plays pretty well, but they clearly don't actually know this piece. That happens all the time. And yes, it could be a concerto. You're the star, right? That doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. So learn the orchestra part, learn you know, practice it with accompanist if you can, especially, I mean, regardless of really, but especially if you are going to go and perform it or make a recording of it with an accompanist for your audition. You don't want that to be the first time you're playing with the accompaniment. You want to get that squared away early, right?
Absolutely. I would say, and I tell this to my private students, because I mean, first of all, it's very clear if you only know your solo part to a concerto or sonata, whatever you're doing, it's very clear to the teacher because they probably know that piece very well. And it's clear to anyone auditioning when you don't actually know that music. So what I always say to my students is, I mean, if they come to me and they clearly only know the solo part, I ask them if they can sing what happens in the orchestra, or like what happens, you know, when you're resting, and generally they don't know. So that means they got to listen, go study scores, you know, really get to know the piece, because you know, it's not just the solo part. It's all of the piece together. So
Yeah.
just make sure you're very thorough with that solo repertoire.
And that will also put you in a different class than a lot of the applicants. And
Yeah.
notice we're still in junior year here, right? So you want to do this your junior year, so that if
and that also goes for any orchestral excerpts that you might have to learn.
Oh, yeah.
And anything that's played with other people. You really want to make sure that you know what's happening around your part and with your part.
Yes.
Because I mean, oftentimes it will inform how you should play X, Y, or Z passage. You know.
Absolutely.
Know what's going on.
And then the next thing I just have is perform, perform, perform. Get it out of your system. Make sure you're super comfortable with it. You know, if things aren't going great for you that day, maybe you missed a train, maybe you're not feeling great, maybe the school is really really cold, whatever it is. You want to, you can't get knocked off your game on game day, right? You want to be really comfortable with it. And also, our advice is to take your AP classes, if you're going to do that, take them in your junior year.
And the same goes
Yeah.
for SATs, I would say too, because SATs and advanced placement, if you can do it, the senior year is going to be extremely overwhelming. Likely, especially if you're planning on being a performance major at some university or whatever, you're going to be traveling quite a bit to these places for auditions and for trial lessons with teachers and XYZ. So, and I know that happened to me my senior year of college. I did quite a bit of traveling, and I actually, I mean, it's kind of fun, but I got to miss quite a bit of school for that, a big chunk of time. So, I mean, you can't exactly stay, an A+ AP student while at the same time traveling to audition at 6 or 7 different schools or whatever in a semester. So yeah, and again, I mean, really, the name of the game is getting ahead of the game. So again, the middle school students that are in this, you guys are really putting yourselves in a good position to, if you are really considering going ahead and studying music in high school and through college, getting your mind, your brain in that space, occupying that space that what you need to do it's definitely beneficial right now, and you can kind of get those pieces in place. I mean, really, if you start working, towards it now, maybe you could free up enough time to, take your SATs in your senior year. I mean, if you're in 8th grade now, that's a lot of time. So
yeah.
So that's just some advice I would say.
Any questions before we move on to the next?
No questions?
All right. All right. Senior year. Apply early and visit early. If they have an option for early acceptance or something like that, you want to get in there, right? So don't leave it to the last second. And that means also, especially with you probably have to write essays, you have to write all kinds of stuff. Do it all early. You don't want to be cramming for college applications.
Sorry, there's one more thing I forgot to say about junior year. There's one thing. I'm sorry to cut you off, Rachel.
That's okay. No, you didn't cut me off.
There are lots of schools and conservatories that offer visits for juniors, high school juniors. I was able to take advantage of this when I was a high school junior. I visited Oberlin for a week. And I went to classes, I got trial lessons, I ate with students. I lived the college life. And again, many schools offer this. I can't remember if it costs money or if it was free. It was so long ago, back in the dark ages. But it's worth an investigation by each of you. Just look into whatever school you're interested in if they have this, because again, getting ahead of the game, especially if it's a school that you're really interested in. The best way to kind of ensure that you have a better chance of getting into the school is meeting the teacher, getting in that teacher's face, letting that teacher hear you. This is me. This is what I can do, right? And I'm only going to get better before I come and audition. Getting ahead of that game and really getting in front of those people is the best way to do it. So that being said, I would highly suggest looking into that junior year visits to these schools.
Yeah. You probably will have already identified potential teachers, but contact them for trial lessons, like Kenny was just saying.
Right, and
they don't mind.
Well, a quick word about that, as a lot of teachers don't mind if you contact them just directly. You usually can get a lot of their emails off of the school's website. some teachers might mind. So what I would do is email the school and the admissions office or something and ask what their policy is for contacting teachers. Again, most teachers probably won't mind if you just contact them out of the blue, but some people don't really like that much. So the best is to contact the admissions office and see what the policy is, and maybe they'll be able to give you some more information and maybe a direct contact for the teacher. But again, you can usually find lots of the stuff on the university's website.
Yeah, also, you should be talking about these, making these choices with your private teacher now, or whoever you study with at the time. And they may know some of these people, you know, like Kenny said, we all know each other, you know, all over the country, all over the world, everybody knows each other. So if your teacher can contact them and say, hey, my student wants to come study with you, can they have a trial lesson? That is like gold.
Yeah.
You know, because you're going on your teacher's very well-established professional connections, and that is really very beneficial.
Can I say two quick things on that?
Please.
Too, just again from a teacher perspective, one negative and one positive. Well, one thing to think about really, but I would say that if you are doing any or all of this stuff sort of like rogue / on your own without your teacher's input, that could really come back to bite you. And it could be very well meaning from the standpoint of like, oh, I don't want to bother them, you know, I'm just going to do this all. However, like they're saying, whatever instrument you play, it's very likely that your teacher knows a lot of the people that you're going to come in contact with, or at least has heard of them. Anyway, the point is, if that person then contacts me and said, hey, your student, you know, came and did a trial lesson, blah, 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 and I knew nothing about it. It's a weird interaction, and you don't want to set yourself up for anybody being blindsided by this stuff. So that's my piece of advice, is loop everybody in. The second piece of advice is don't blow off the trial lessons. I've encountered a couple kids that don't think this is a big deal, particularly if you're applying for schools that are like the faculty is members of the New York Phil, the Philadelphia Orchestra, the Chicago Symphony, right? I think there's this mindset of like, oh, you know, these are the world's most amazing musicians. Of course, they're going to be fantastic teachers. And yes, I mean, that is basically factual. However, you can't account for what your fit will be with that person.
Correct.
And to me, that's like critical. Again, like, I mean, you know, I think what Rachel said earlier is such a good point, thinking about how much money and time and investment you're going to put into college. So much of that will be with your instrumental teacher. And if you go there and discover like, wow, we're really not compatible, like that's a big bummer, you know? So I just would say, really take the trial lessons seriously, no matter who it is that you're trying to apply to study with, and make sure that you're a really good fit and would feel good about studying with them for 4 years, and that you're not, you know, because everybody has such a different teaching style. And I think I've had some kids that study with me that go off to college and study with someone else that's totally different, and they're just totally jarred by that, you know? So anyway, that's what I would say.
Yeah, completely agreed, 100%. It's so important. And make your audition and pre-screening recordings. So you want to also take this very seriously. A lot of colleges and especially conservatories require a pre-screening video. You want to really look at those requirements, okay? Because a lot of them, the reason for the video rather than just audio is that they don't want you to make a bunch of edits. They want one take. They want to see how you play as if it's a performance. Mm-hmm. And you want to really try to get a good recording. If you can do it with a pianist, great. And, you know, even if not, you don't want it to be like on your cell phone at, 9 o'clock at night when the light is terrible in your bedroom and you're wearing a SpongeBob t-shirt. Like, nobody's going to take you seriously if doesn't matter how well you play, like, for real. So, you want to think about the setting. How's this going to look? Look at it like through the camera. get or borrow a nice microphone for it. You know, really try to do it as professionally as you possibly can within your means.
That I agree with that. I just want to backtrack a little bit and mention the SpongeBob T-shirt. Because I conduct three youth orchestras in the Philly area, and I mean, I've sat through. I mean, I have to sit through hundreds of auditions every year, and you would be surprised at what some students wear to auditions. Now, this might sound, I might start to sound like your grandpa, but when I was younger, I was taught that you kind of have to like dress up for an audition, not like, a tuxedo or anything like that, but a nice pair of slacks and like a nice shirt, maybe a tie if you're feeling it, but definitely not like ripped jeans and a ACDC t-shirt. And I have seen this. I have seen it, and it's something to behold. But you want to think about that situation. The audition situation is essentially a job interview. I mean, it's an interview.
Yep.
And
Look,
also one thing that I think it's important for students to realize is, especially if you are going into, you want a career in music, um, you can really think of that career starting as early as high school. Because especially if you stay in this country and you become, or even in the area that you live in, um, if you stay that in that area after you graduate, people will remember you as a student, and that reputation that you set up for yourself as a student largely will carry over into your adulthood, unless you've made some sort of really drastic change, like to yourself. But the way you are now as a student, like people will remember that and kind of will attribute that sort of behavior, whatever it is, good or bad, to you as an adult, especially if you stay in that same area. So, it's best to, start off on a good foot, come dressed up, like be, respectful, and like don't be late, and all the things. And, just wanted to put.
I have a short little story about that. For years, I was concertmaster of an opera orchestra. And we had an audition for principal cello for the opera orchestra. Now, of course, this isn't college, but the same thing applies. So we got down to two finalists, and we took down the screen because professional auditions are usually, they have the screen up at least until the final round, if not all the way through. And both of the candidates sounded great. They were both really, really good, comparable with each other musically. But one of them was in gray sweatpants and hiking boots and a t-shirt. And the other one had nice black button-down shirt, nice black slacks, very well put together. So the proctor came out and said the first candidate, the one in the sweatpants, would like to apologize for their appearance. And I'm expecting the next thing, the airline lost their luggage, something like that, which is totally reasonable. Obviously, nobody's going to fault anyone for that. But what he said was, but he went hiking this morning and didn't have enough time to go back to the hotel and change. And that person was not rejected based on their playing. That person was rejected based on the fact that they have no time management skills. So it says a lot, maybe more than it should, but it really matters how you look at auditions. It really matters. Yep. Anyway. So what Kenny mentioned this before, watch this video on audio recording for classical musicians. I put the link here. This is the Primavera Fund video that was produced earlier this year on how to set up a good home recording studio. Talks about lighting, talks about tech, what you need, all that stuff. The next thing is make an audition budget that includes travel, trial lessons, and accompanist fees. You may have to perform with an accompanist at the audition. You want to factor all those financial things in.
One thing about the travel that I've noticed often gets overlooked by our Primavera students is ground travel.
Yes. How are you going to get there from the airport?
From the airport to the school. Most schools are not located right next to the airport. You can't walk there. So most people think about, how do I get from my house to this town where the school is in? And they book their flights, or whatever, but they don't think all the way through and think about getting from the airport to the school. So, I mean, that is a very important part
Yes.
of the equation. Otherwise, you might find yourself walking from, Cleveland to Oberlin, for example, and it's not a close walk.
Right. Buy your audition outfit. I know, this might sound weird, but you really want to get something that's comfortable. You want to have like an outfit that you use for the auditions, and that's it. That's your audition outfit. That's my advice anyway.
One bit about that is I would say, first of all, as you're preparing for all these auditions and whatnot, it's a good idea to play for your peers, your cousins, your grandmas, your aunts, your uncles, nieces, whatever you got. And you
Pets.
play for your dog, your cat, whatever, whoever's going to listen. It's all about getting in front of people and playing this repertoire so that the first time your audition rolls around, that won't be like the first time. It'll be the 50th time that you've played this repertoire in front of people. But in addition to that, I would also urge you to wear your audition clothes in those situations. Because again, you want to make sure you're comfortable. You want to make sure your shirt's not making you sweat or whatever is going on.
Yep.
You want to feel as comfortable as possible when the audition comes, and that's part of it. The clothing is a big part of it. So
I once bought a concert dress that looked great. It was long sleeve, but what I didn't factor in was I play violin, so I have to do this a lot. And it was too tight on my arms to do that. So by the end of the concert, when I went home and changed, I had burst blood vessels all up and down my arm. You don't want that to happen to you because you're going to have to play anyway. All right. And most importantly, you have to graduate from high school. We have had issues with this. You can get into every college in the entire world and get full scholarship, but you cannot go unless you graduate from high school. So make sure you do that. Keep your grades up. And, there's, like I wrote here, there's a lot to do your senior year to prepare for auditions and eventually choose a school. And like Kenny said, you don't want to be taking your AP classes then. You want it to be an easier year academically. You want to be able to get through and get through well. Okay? Any questions about any of that?
Do we have to graduate from high school?
Yes.
well, I mean, I guess if you go to Curtis, you technically don't have to. Curtis will accept you without a high school diploma, but you have to be good enough to get into Curtis. So
Yeah, and also later on, jobs are going to ask you if you have a high school diploma. Do you want to say no?
that's correct. That
Yeah,
is
you got it. You have to. Sorry, my dogs are deciding what spot they want on the couch. All right. Any other questions? Yeah? You're muted, I think.
Oops. I'm sorry. How do you go about picking like audition stuff?
Audition what? Clothes? Or
No, like audition pieces, I mean. Like,
oh, well, you're going to have to discuss that with your teacher.
okay.
Your private teacher is the one who's going to help you choose that stuff. Just
Yeah.
like Jocelyn said, you can't go rogue and, in any of these things. You can't go rogue with choosing your schools, your potential teachers, or your repertoire. Your teacher will know what you play best.
Also,
Right.
the schools will have a list of things, solo pieces that you can pick from, or orchestral excerpts, or whatever specifics. The schools will
Yeah.
tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah, Colin.
Since like sometimes I get really nervous before performances and auditions, how do you try to ease the nerves for these auditions?
Well, that is
Well,
different for each person. I
yeah,
would say that, I think I have a couple things on the next thing here. But first of all, the very first and most important thing is if you feel prepared, you will feel more calm. So you want to really, like, we can't stress enough how much you should perform this stuff in any setting. Grandma comes over for Sunday dinner, play your pieces for her. You know, audition for local competitions, play in your teacher's studio recitals, anything you can do. Also, having a routine usually helps me. You know, I like to, you know, just have my things that I do before. I like to go for a walk or a easy run the day of. You know, you want to work out some things that help you calm down.
Yeah, I
Kenny?
would also.
Yeah, just what I would say is, first of all, one of our Primavera videos does cover anxiety and nerves. I think it was given by Dr. Andy Parker, oboist at University of Michigan. See how he's at Michigan, right? At any rate, one of the things that I believe is when you get nervous, it's usually a sign of, you know, you feel like you're not prepared for X, Y, or Z. So, I mean, again, it always comes back to practice and preparation. Because when I feel like I really thoroughly know a piece, I mean, I don't get those nerves. When I feel like and I'm a little shaky on this, oh, here comes that hard part, that's when, you know, the nerves start to creep in. So when if you spend enough time really practicing and diligently practicing and preparing whatever repertoire it is you're going to perform or audition on or whatever, then you'll notice that that doesn't really become a factor anymore.
And that was another reason why I suggested learning the music in your junior year. So then maybe you can put it away for a couple of months and then learn some other stuff and then come back to it, and then you'll be like, oh, hello, old friend. You know what I mean? Instead of it being this like new and, you know, scary thing.
One other super quick thing that has really helped me with nerves is that I think sometimes when you're first doing your first performances and you haven't been performing forever and ever, like a lot of us have done so many concerts we can't even remember now, is that it helped me to sort of flip a switch in my brain between being nervous and feeling adrenaline, right?
Right.
So I think sometimes you can feel those I mean, most times I go on stage, even if it's a totally low-key concert and I'm playing like fifth oboe on whatever, Mary Had a Little Lamb, like you still get that, you know, the stage lights come on and the conductor comes out and you get that like adrenaline surge. I think if you can reframe that in your mind as like excitement, that's what I do. I'm like, oh yes, the concert's starting, this is fun, right? I'm doing this, it's exciting. Rather than feeling that adrenaline surge, which is bound to happen on some level at any performance or audition that you give, right? Hopefully you get that adrenaline because you're really excited and it's, you know, music is hard and you're liking what you're doing. So I think reframing that as far as like, okay, I'm feeling nervous as like, oh, I'm feeling excited. That's been really helpful for me as far as like being able to categorize it differently and not dwell on the anxious part of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, definitely. Okay, live auditions. We're coming up on the end here. Gotta get through this. Okay, prepare your parts, practice performing, know the accompaniment well, and practice with a pianist before you go to your auditions. We've covered all this, right? Don't overthink things like where they asked you to stop or any questions they ask you. Sometimes they cut you off because you sound great and they know they're going to accept you and they have a long day ahead of them. Okay, so like if they cut you off after, you know, half a page, don't go away and dwell on it. Just let it be.
Correct, and I know Jocelyn's had these days. I've certainly had these days where I've been sitting through, you know, 8-9 hours straight of auditions.
Right.
You know, you'll likely be one of those people that these teachers have been sitting through many hours, and like, you know, they've heard enough. Like, you know, they don't need to hear every single note to
right.
assess.
Yeah.
These are experts also, keep in mind.
They know what they're listening to.
Exactly. So.
Bring plenty of water and snacks. It may turn into a longer day than you expect. You don't want to get low blood sugar. You don't want to get dehydrated. And especially drink a lot of water the day before. Okay? Also, I didn't put this in, but try to get a really good night's sleep 2 nights before. Mm-hmm. You can't count on getting a good night's sleep the night before because you might be really nervous, right? But 2 nights before is key. Be friendly. Smile and say hello to the panel. They're regular people. They
Yeah.
love it when you come in and you say hi and you smile. They're like, oh, it's nice. You know, you come in and, oh, hi. Oh. Then they're like, oh.
I will say
They
this
also-
First impressions count.
Anybody
Yes.
that's judging your audition wants you to succeed. They're on your side. Don't be scared of them.
Also, you know, when you start doing freelance gigs and whatnot, oftentimes you'll get hired. Not necessarily on the best player. Doesn't necessarily get hired. It's the one that's, you know, the coolest one. Who is the one that's like the nicest? The one that's like a real person and not like, you know, uptight or
Yep.
mean or, you know, just, you know, hard to work with.
Yep.
So
And make sure your audition outfit is appropriate, clean, and ironed. We've basically been over this, but you want to just check all those things. Make sure you're going into your audition looking neat. Just quickly, scholarships and student loans. Your first scholarship offer is only a starting point. If you need more money, ask them for it. Also ask the teacher who accepted you to lobby for you.
yes.
Your high school and private teachers and youth orchestra directors can also write recommendations for you. So we had a student who is now just matriculated into Peabody. His first scholarship offer, there was not enough money. He ended up getting not only full scholarship, but most of his room and board paid for.
In fact, he was a student at Symphony and C summer camp just a couple of summers ago.
Yeah. So, and I wrote a recommendation, his teacher wrote recommendation, you know, he asked people to write recommendations. These actually do matter. You're not going to bother your teachers by asking for these.
Yes, it's something that teachers are used to doing and they want to do for their students.
Yeah.
These
And
are,
even if you've asked them already for a recommendation for your application, ask them for another one. You accepted my student, now don't you want them to go there? Right? And student loans really should be just a last resort. I mean, they're there if you need them, but that you will have to pay them back.
yes, I mean, there's lots of other grant programs, federal and state grants that you can look up in your specific states. There's performing arts scholarships if you're again going into music performance. There's scholarships for African American students. There's scholarships for, you know, Latino American, like you name it. There's something out there. There's probably a scholarship for, like, you know, German American students who want to go to school and study the kazoo. I mean, there's all kinds of things out there. So, you know, you kind of got to get creative and look around. There's private foundations that offer them, as well as federal and, like, you know, state entities.
Right. So here I just put, these are like big lists. You know, these are basically, you go to these resources to search for other resources kind of things. But I've put some for Pennsylvania and some for New Jersey in here. And I'll also share this presentation and you can send it out to everyone.
Another resource is for you know, college funds is the university or the school itself, the institution itself. You can often the schools will offer the students grants or things that they don't have to pay back. Again, you want to be careful of going and getting student loans from anywhere, from the institutions or the federal or state government, because, you know, they will become a burden. I mean, most people do end up having student loans of some sort. Most people do. So sometimes it can't be avoidable, but just try to minimize it. My advice would be to minimize it to the absolute minimum that you can get it. You know, if you have to go and get a job, you know, you get a quartet or quintet and start busking in, you know, the septos, subways, so be it. Like, you know, whatever, to not end up having those student loans, which will be with you well into your adulthood.
And if you do have to do work study or things like that, or get an extra job, try to make it something that's going to add to your skill set. Like, I know somebody who worked through college at the Fleischer collection, which is the, you know, huge collection of classical music at the library. Like, that will help you, you know?
When I was in high
Anything
school,
like that.
one of my jobs, as in addition to playing organ and piano in my church in high school, was I was an usher at the Opera House in Baltimore. I got to see all the operas. I got to see
Right.
every multiple times.
Yep.
When I was in school, when I was in college, undergrad, my job was concert productions. I got to like see how and participate in how the backstage area works for like a classical production, orchestra, chamber music, whatever. So that was very valuable information because again, those people when that work the backstages of the halls you'll be playing in, those become very key people in your life. You want to keep those guys happy. So it's
Yep.
good to know what they're going through.
Yep. Well, any last questions before we end?
So
Patricia, you all right? Okay.
now you guys are all experts on how to get into college. You guys can feel free to reach out to us with any questions that might come up, later. Jocelyn knows how to reach us, so that's fine. And my students, if something comes up, you can ask me tomorrow in our lessons.
Yep, and we'll get the presentation from you guys, either the whole presentation or like certainly all the links that were in the presentation for all of you
Yeah,
guys.
we'll send you the whole thing. That's fine. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. And so yeah, we'll send that out to all you guys so you can have all those resources on hand. Awesome. Well, if nobody has anything else, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you, Kenny and Rachel. This was super valuable. I've been personally loving all of these presentations we're doing. I feel like I'm learning so much myself. So yeah, it's all really great information. And we thank you guys so much for making the time to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, guys. See you
Thanks,
all.
everyone. Bye.